Welcome, everyone. Do you believe it's May? This is the very month of May. God, it's amazing. All the warblers are coming through. This is the May meeting of the Mecklenburg Audubon Society. I'd like to welcome you all.
That's okay. I've got that. Don't worry. Hold on. I got that. I think I got that. There.
Here we go. We've got 12 new members. I'd like to welcome all these new members and any new members here or new people here. You stand up and give us your name. There's Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to admit it?
In front of the camera. There you go.
No one else wants to admit it? Okay. Well, welcome, Sarah.
Went the wrong one.
There you go.
Let's give a hand to all these folks who brought us goodies. I think also I want to mention Janet. Janet, month after month, make sure we get these goodies. So let's give a hand to Janet. Field reps, Richard.
Should be good.
So you can see we got a lot of field trips. It's May. And the warblers are coming through, but this is also our last regular meeting where we're getting together like this. So I wanted to take a moment while you're in the applause mode of mentioning all the various trip leaders that we've had. It's just been fantastic. Once again this year, Jeff Turner, Judy Walker, Wayne Covington, Janet Palmer, Jeff Lemons, Taylor Peepoff, Steve Coggin, Steve Tracy, and then on the Christmas counts, we had Steve Tracy, Taylor Peepoff, Matthew Withrow, and Judy Walker leading Christmas counts, and Jeff Lemons on the spring counts. So let's give a round of applause. Keep on coming. I think Judy had 25 today.
Global Big Day is coming up. You all know what this is? You can do eBird and submit your sightings in eBird, any amount you want on that day, and they're all going to be logged in globally. All around the globe, people are going to be doing this. In fact, last year, there were 70-some thousand birders that did this. No, about around 60,000 birders that did this, and they notched up more than 7,000 species of birds worldwide. And you can go online and actually see these data as they come in. Wonderful. So any of you who are familiar with eBird, this is a good day to try your eBird anywhere you want, the backyard, out in the field, anywhere. Back. Steve.
This is the meeting where we elect board members for next year. And I'd like to move the election of this slate of board members for the 24-25. They will each serve a 3-year term. And Sarah Gagne, she's in the back row. Sarah, could you wave? Bill Garcia, next to Sarah. Bill Raspberry, are you here, Bill? Didn't see Bill. And Steve Tracy. Didn't see Steve. This is the slate, but we're willing to take nominations from the floor. So if anyone would like to nominate someone to be on the board, the floor is open. Hearing no nominations from the floor, please vote on this slate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. These are your new officers. Thank you. Thank you for
Anisha, you want to come up and talk about Advocacy Day?
Good news, everyone. You still have Monday, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4 days to register for Advocacy Day, which will be on Wednesday, May 22nd. We will all go up together or separately to Raleigh to meet with our legislators to advocate for 3 issues this year. As usual, conservation funding. This year, we're also advocating for heirs property bill, which is essentially a law to ensure that property stays in the family if someone dies without a will. And the third is conservation of wetlands. And so these are 3 big issues this year, and we'd love to have your support. And who doesn't want to hang out with politicians all day?
Thank you. Our last regular meeting of this fiscal year, we're off in July and August, is next month's picnic. So I urge you all to come to our picnic next time. Bring whatever you want for the evening, for the picnic. We're gonna supply what, Janet, do we supply?
We'll have the drinks for you, but please, when you, each of you can bring a dish, and there's no sign out, it sort of miraculously ends up being balanced, slated food. And, if you'll bring your own utensils and plate and stuff that way, we're trying to make it a zero waste event. And of course, if you forget, I'll have some there for you.
So please come next month. It's a lot of fun. Get to meet your colleagues you haven't seen in a while and mingle with the rest of the folks that you do know.
Yeah, the pavilion, if you come in at the light down there, come up and follow that up, you'll see the pavilion on the left. I think it's after the second one, something in that area, but it'll be on the left, kind of hidden behind what looks like a little shed, but it's there. And if you have an extra, some extra chairs, that would be helpful.
Chairs are good.
Chairs are always good.
Chairs are.
They do have some benches, but it's always good to have chairs.
We have a wonderful program tonight, and to introduce our speaker, I'm going to recognize Steve again. Who's gonna come up.
You want to put,
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. It's my pleasure to introduce Kevin Burke, sitting here in the front row. Kevin grew up in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, running around the woods and trails of Shenandoah National Park. His grandmother in Rhode Island introduced him to birds. Kevin received a Bachelor of Science degree in ecotourism and conservation ecology from the University of Idaho. Kevin has led bird trips around North America and the world for about 20 years. Kevin and his wife Jenny are the founders of Carolina Nature Tours. And Jenny's an excellent artist. And Kevin leads birding groups for Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours as well. Kevin and Jenny live in Hendersonville, North Carolina with their 2 children, where they enjoy birding, kayaking, hiking, and camping in the mountains that surround their home. So please let's welcome Kevin Burke.
I don't think I could have written it better myself. Thank y'all for having me, for sure. Let me try to put this. I've never put this thing on. People was talking to it like this. Try
yeah,
talking to it.
that's because you know.
Nice. Okay. I'm close to there. Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for having me, y'all. Yeah, I was been fortunate enough to spend, better part of a month in Hawaii over the last 6 months. Did, 2 12-day trips, to Hawaii, and, it's great. Has anyone been to Hawaii? So yeah, good. All right. So I'm not the world's leading expert on Hawaii, but, I've been there, so. It's a beautiful state. It has awesome birds. It has a lot of invasive things. I didn't focus a lot on the invasives, exotic birds and invasive species of, plants and animals, on this, program, because I kind of wanted to focus on the, stuff that's supposed to be there, right? The natives, and kind of their plight. And their, and just really their beauty too, for sure. So, it's a great place to go. And yeah, we'll talk about it. So aloha. That's, yeah, that's Hawaiian for hello, goodbye, and just about whatever else you want to say. So, like Steve was saying, I work for Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours, and my wife and I own Carolina Nature Tours. I say my wife and I, so if anything goes wrong, I'm playing that. So that's kind of how it goes. Yeah, we do a lot of like birding and botanizing up in the mountains. So if y'all are ever up there, come and see us. I don't want this to be a commercial for anything, but if y'all are ever up there, come and see us. But yeah, so let's talk about a little bit about Hawaiian birds. It is a really awe-inspiring and just beautiful place to be, and the birds are super cool, but it's also pretty depressing at the same time. And I hate doom and gloom. Like, I'm not a very doom and gloom guy. I'm pretty positive. I like to put a rosy hue on everything. But some of the stuff is pretty dire in the islands. So I don't think any Hawaiian talk is complete without a name, right? So you got to have a name first and foremost, the Hawaiian use. But so it's beautiful. There are stunning views everywhere in Hawaii, no matter where you go. And it's pretty tragic, like I was saying, and but there's some hope, right? So you got to have hope, or else all is lost, right? So there's a lot of hope, whether it is going to come to fruition or not. I think some of it is, but some of the birds that are alive now are probably in pretty dire straits. They may not make it. So, but we'll talk about all this stuff.
Hold on. It should be fine.
So the hardest part about Hawaii is pronouncing everything, right? So the Hawaiian alphabet consists of 13 different letters. Okay, so A-E-I-O-U, naturally the vowels, right? And then it consists of 8 consonants. So, and the 8th consonant is the okina, which is basically like the apostrophe, right? So they count that as a consonant, so, or a glottal stop, right? So whenever you see that in a Hawaiian word, it's basically a hard stop between vowels in a word, right? So I'll hopefully pronounce everything right. I probably won't, but we'll see how it goes. I got a lot of it down, so we'll see. But this is an awesome view of Mauna Kea. So on the Big Island, so the observatory is up there. It's a beautiful from Mauna Loa. So we're on the other side of the valley there. So, and we'll go over mainly 3 different islands that we travel to. So there's 3 different islands that you can get a decent amount of native birds on. Well, decent-ish amount of native birds on. We don't typically go to Maui on the trips that I run because you might be able to see one of the native honey creepers, and everything else is on private, there's on conservation. I just can't see it. So it's not really cost prohibitive to go to the Maui. I mean, you can do it on your own and you might be able to see one of them, but typically we just go to 3 of the islands. So birds by the numbers here, in Hawaii, I don't like to write a lot on my PowerPoints because people tend to start snoozing when that happens, but this may be the most words that I have. But so pre-Polynesian settlements, which was about 1,000 years ago in Hawaii, there was 113 native birds or endemic birds to Hawaii. 71 of those are now confirmed extinct, and 31 of those, of the remaining 48, are federally either vulnerable or endangered. And 10 of those have not been seen in a really long time. So it's pretty dire there, but it's not a reason not to go because they're it's still fun, right? It's still birding. But this is the Hawaiian duck, right? So it is an endangered bird, but fairly easy to see, right, Judy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get to the right place.
Yeah. So kind of looks like a mallard with a big white eye ring, a curly tail, that good stuff. So some of the birds are actually doing okay. Right? So, we focus on, like I said, Oahu, Kauai, and Hawaii. Maui is where you can see the other, native birds, but like I was just saying, you know, there's one and you may not be able to see that one, you know, if you go, so. There are people doing good work on Maui for those birds, including one of my good friends who is from, Tryon, right over here, Nate Watkins. I don't know if any of y'all know him, but he's a graduate student and, he is working, with Maui Parrot Hills, on birds, so. Doing some good work over there and trying to reintroduce those birds, or trying to at least, you know, stabilize the population, so. Oahu is, where Honolulu is, right? So this is the Honolulu airport. We go up to elevation to see a lot of these, native birds. So this is a picture from the Wili Wili Nui Ridge. So it's kind of fun to get up there and you can overlook, the city and the airport. And then, usually what we do is we just get right out of Honolulu because who wants to go to a big city, you know? So we stay in Waikiki, which is, you know, famous for surfing and beaches, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff. But it also has a really good population of white terns, right? So these are native birds. They do breed throughout the Pacific Islands, you know, all the way down into like, you know, Guam and Indonesia and farther down like that. But they do have a good population of them on Oahu. So only place you can see them in Hawaii. So pretty cool little, there's small terns, you know, think Forster's turnstile, like small, you know, maybe even a little bit smaller than that. And they lay their eggs on just a branch. So just like that, right? So their eggs are kind of oblong, right? So they're fat at one side and skinny on the other. So if they start to roll, they roll around in a circle, right? So they don't fall off the branch, you know? If it's windy, it's a different story, you know, but it seems to work for them. So, but they're beautiful, just all white terns, you know, black eyes, black bill, just beautiful bird. And they are steps out of our hotel, you know. And I should say that Judy had I had the pleasure of birding with Judy in February in Hawaii. So we had a blast. So, but just steps out of the hotel. And so there's two native birds that are on Oahu that we searched for, right? So these are the only two that are left. So this is the Oahu Elepaio, right? They're called Elepaio because their song is like a Elepaio, you know, so it's like a basically a monologue here slightly, but they just say their own name like a toady, but cooler. So it's a critically endangered bird. So there's about 1,100 of them left in the world, right? They're only on the island of Oahu, and they're only at, you know, from what's that? Yeah, come on up. They're only at higher elevations too, and they're really hard to see. We worked really hard for this one. So
And then we found them in the parking lot.
well, the birding is always best in the parking lot. That's just the rule.
We had the best.
It's always best. So they have one good thing going for them, is they're an old world taxa, right? So they're a monarch flycatcher, think paradise flycatcher, stuff like that, of the Pacific Rim. So, you know, as we get further into the presentation, they are a little bit more resistant to some of the things going on with the native birds. So like specifically avian malaria. So these guys have come from an old world, you know, taxa. They were not immune, but they are resistant to avian malaria, you know, before the Hawaiian Islands even existed. So they have a chance, right? So but still 1,100 birds, and there's a lot of other things that are against them. So which we'll talk about in a little bit. So they're insect eaters, flycatchers, right? So they are catch insects on the wing. But really cute. And then so this is one of the native honey creepers, and it's the only native honey creeper that is endemic to Oahu. There are a couple others that actually aren't there, but this is endemic. So the Oahu Amakihi. Took me like 3 days to learn how to pronounce it, but I think I got it. So, but still 40,000 birds on the island. fairly stable population, all of these birds that are endemic to these really small islands, one really like nasty storm or one like just, blight that comes through, one like small thing can decimate the majority of the population or all of the population, and it has in the past, but these guys are a little bit more generalist. So they are insect eaters, but they also eat nectar. And the ohia tree, which I'll get to in a little bit, just kind of like the bedrock tree of the Hawaiian Islands, is typically what they like to eat the nectar out of. So I'll show you some pictures of that in a little bit when we get there. But since they are generalists, they are minorly resistant to avian malaria. So they're not as affected as some of the other native honey creepers. They've got and it's important when we get to some of the other birds, but they have a pretty like decent black mask right here in front of the eye. So some of the other native honey creepers look very similar, but they don't have one. So so keep a look at that. There are other amaki'is on other islands too. So one of my favorite birds, the koleo, or the kolea, excuse me, the Pacific golden plovers. These guys are they're everywhere out there. So spend the winter down there, right? And they were on top of the roof of our hotel. They're in trees, they're in lawns, they're everywhere out there. So one of the most common birds you see in the Hawaiian Islands. In restaurants, yeah, totally, right? So yeah, they weren't quite like the chicken in the baggage.
Oh, yeah,
like
that's
the
true.
Jungle fowl, it's like riding the baggage carousel. But they are everywhere. It's cool, because like, we would kill to see a Pacific golden plover. Would that be amazing, right? But yeah, they're definitely a pretty common bird there. So, but the Hawaiians call them the kolea. And then here's another one that is a vulnerable species, breeds entirely in Alaska, right? So the bristle-back curlew, much easier to get here than in Alaska, right? So I
I
don't know.
can swear by that.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know how
Tried
many of
both.
y'all have done the hike outside of Nome to get these things,
Oh.
but yeah, but it's tough. And all you gotta do is walk a quarter mile on a golf course to get these guys, right? So this one's standing on a gravestone, right? So it's yeah, this golf course is pretty amazing actually. So it's on Oahu, you go up the east side, for about an hour, with beautiful views. And you get to this little golf course and just walk through two greens, or no, two fairways, and then you come on the other side and there's some like curlews. So it's pretty amazing. So, but a lot of them winter in the Hawaiian Islands, specifically on Oahu.
I like that.
Here's another one that's great. Same golf course, mind you. So you turn around and there's lace and albatross just hanging out on the fairways at the golf course. So I've got to look for better photos, but this is kind of how we were seeing them.
Yeah.
It was just kind of hanging out on the golf course. So yeah, there was a half a dozen of them or so. They do nest almost exclusively on Hawaii, but more the outer islands like Lake Sand and some of the outer islands. But a lot of them, when they disperse, they'll come and they'll just kind of hang out on some big other islands. So Kauai is a big one. Used to be able to go into these neighborhoods in Kauai and just drive around, and there'd be lace and albatross nesting in people's yards and stuff. But I think the folks got together and they're like, yeah, we don't really want all these birders in our neighborhood anymore. So we're pretty sketchy people. So, but a huge wingspan, 6.5 feet, and while we were there, we had a black-footed albatross fly over as well. So in 2 different albatross on the same golf course, which is pretty wild. Usually the black-footed albatross, you have to set a scope up and then you look way out into the horizon and you might see one, but we had one come straight over. Yeah, exactly. It just came straight over and the lace ants got up and
Not
they were like,
that high.
they were like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So they're chasing it off because they're a little bit smaller of an albatross than lace ants are. So
We also got to see them doing their little dancing.
yeah, bill clapping. They were just, they were dancing around, doing bill clapping. It was pretty wild. was a good day. So my favorite bird of that day was, the I'o i ka wawa. So, or the dog that runs through water, right? So
Oh.
this is the Hawaiian monk seal, and the only one I've ever seen. I mean, they're so solitary, I mean, there's not very many of them, right? So super endangered. It's the second most endangered pinniped in the world behind the Mediterranean monk seal.
Oh.
And so they are pretty common. They exist on Oahu and Kauai, but you may or may not see them on Hawaii. But like I've looked for the better part of a month. I saw this one. So and it's pretty amazing. We pretty much did this the entire time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a super exciting one. It was just tired. It was kind of hunkered down. There was a couple of folks that lived there that had some sticks in the sand, so you couldn't go past. And
Oh.
there wasn't anyone there when we drove past. We looked around and there's like,
Yeah, they all showed up.
there's a pretty big seal on the beach. That's pretty amazing. So, but believe it or not, like feral cats are the #1 predator of like baby seals, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
feral cats are basically responsible for endangered salmon. So, not gonna go into the feral cats.
Right, but
Don't kick me out.
problem for the cats too.
Okay, so Oahu, 2 native endemic birds, right? So that are left, the Ohio and the Amaki. So, and then we kind of switch gears. We only spent about a day and a half there because that's, if you don't get the 2 birds there, I mean, you get the 2 birds there and then there's not a lot of other things to see. I mean, well, as far as bird wise go, but you can go to the Dole Pineapple. And do that. So then we go to Kauai, right? So this is my favorite island. Ooh, it's so pretty. So the Garden Island, they call it. It's older than the other islands in the main part of the archipelago, right? So it's lower in elevation, about 4,000 feet is where it tops out at. And that is working against it right now, and I'll talk about a little bit about that in just a little bit. But this is home to some really endangered species. Some birds that we don't even go for because it's an 8-mile hike into this swamp, right? Just the wettest place on earth, and it's too strenuous to get into, and you may not even encounter the birds that you're going to see. So. But it's worth going. And it's beautiful. So this is just a shot of the coastline. Oh, sorry, Judy, close your eyes. Judy, close your eyes. Yeah, all right.
Gorgeous scenery everywhere.
Gorgeous scenery. That's right. That's right. Here's Judy at Kokea State Park on the western edge of Kauai and the Napali coast. It's an absolutely beautiful place. So the Alakai Swamp is where the last stronghold of these native honey creepers is, right? So there's 3 or 4 species of birds that only occur in a small tract of swamp, and that's it, right? So we go to the edge of that because, like I said, it's a strenuous hike through the wettest place on earth, and it's not conducive to group travel, but if you are, if you're fit and you want to go, I'd say it's worth the hike for sure. If you love to hike, it's fun. There's also Waimea Canyon, which I'll show you a picture of here in a minute. Kilauea Point. So all these places we visit. This is Kilauea Point National Wildlife Refuge. From the kind of like first parking area you come to, it's just a spit of land that goes out, and all of these white. I think if you're a birder, you know what all the white stuff is on the cliffs over there, right? So yeah, that's all of the seabird poo, or that so with nesting birds all over the place. So red-footed boobies, frigate birds, red-tailed tropic birds, red-billed tropic birds, white-tailed tropic birds. So it's cool because then you get to see stuff like this, right? So you can see red-tailed tropic birds below you, right? So they're just flying around the point, just kind of this kind of flying around. And there's also a really cool bird that nests on this point too. It's the wedge-tailed shearwater, right? So they nest, I know, Anna, we didn't get to see that, but I did earlier. But it's so they nest in burrows, so you'll be walking along the edge of the path. And kind of as it goes out here, so you get to walk all the way out around the lighthouse there. And there's burrows on the side of the path, and the wedge-tailed shearwaters are nesting on the side of it. So
Wow.
it's pretty cool. They're also nesting on that magical golf course I was talking about. So, but you can see some of the plump, downy chicks in the fall usually. Yeah. You can kind of put a scope up on the horizon and see wedge-tailed shearwaters in the spring if you want to, but they're like little pepper flakes flying around. But it's kind of fun. So another place that we go and visit for some native birds is the Hanalei National Wildlife Refuge, and these are taro fields, right? So taro is that tuber where they kind of make their poi, right? So it's like a white tuber where they mash up and it tastes gross, but people like it. So, sorry if you like it, but it wasn't the best thing ever. But in those poi fields, you get Hawaiian ducks, right? So offshoot of the mallard, right? Looks a lot like a mallard, but full species. So you don't have the curly tail, the speculum, and it's got a nice white eye ring there. So there are kind of hybrid mallards in with them, so you kind of got to sort through until you get to some pure ones. But it's a cool little duck. You kind of got to go and check them out when you go. And then the Hawaiian coot, right? So another full species of endemic bird to the Hawaiian Islands. So not just on, it's not just on Hawaii, but it's on the other islands too. But this is a good place to go and see them up close. So it's not a great picture, but they do have a kind of a larger shield than our coots do. It kind of comes way up, here, so it's kind of a bulbous top to it too. So a little bit different than our American coots. Still a coot, still got the lobed toes, and still a staring little walking. Right? So, okay, so then we go over to the west side of Hawaii, which I think is probably one of the most beautiful places on earth, right? So this is Waimea Canyon. You drive up the side of Waimea Canyon. It's a 10-mile long canyon. It's the Grand Canyon of Hawaii, right? So just a beautiful thing. This is where they filmed first part of Jurassic Park, where the helicopter drops in, right? So this first Jurassic Park, not the 20th one, the first one, right? So where the helicopter drops in and flies around. So this is where they filmed that. Just absolutely stunning place. 75% of the time it's got clouds because it's really close to the wettest place on earth, right? But we happened to have some pretty nice views of it the day that we were there. And then Koka'e State Park. So this is the picture minus Judy and myself, right?
Oh, okay.
So looking down into the west side of Hawaii. So a lot of these native honey creepers are pretty much, see these streams that come in, these really narrow and deep stream channels that come in. They're pretty much exclusively like in those little channels now. So some of the places that you have to get to are, there's no roads, there's no trails, it's inaccessible, right? So the last strongholds of some of these birds are, but most of the time they don't know how many are left, right? But they can go to traditional spots and count some of these birds and say, okay, you extrapolate that and be like, all right, maybe there's a couple hundred, maybe there's one, right? So might look a little bit familiar. So we had a look at the Oahu Elepaio. So this is the Kauai Elepaio, a little bit cuter in my opinion. So a little bit rounder, a little bit, just a little bit lighter in color. So just a really cute little bird, but doing okay. If vulnerable is okay, right? So which it is in Hawaii. So just a cute little thing. easier to get than the Oahu Ohio. So it's better, it's doing better than the Oahu Ohio. So easier to get.
Wasn't that the
We
one-
saw more of them than
What was the one we had so much trouble finding?
all the other ones.
No,
The Ani Ani Ow,
no, when we were up there, we saw those. but then
the Ani Ani Ow.
Okay,
I'll get there.
okay.
So, and so, as I was kind of mentioning before, the ohia tree, so these are the ohia blossoms, right? So this is what the honeycreepers love. They love to drink the nectar of the ohia blossoms, or the hui, which is the name of the flowers that they call on the ohia tree. It's in the evergreen kind of myrtle family of trees. It's in bad shape too. So there's a fungus that is really, it's really working hard to destroy this tree. It's called rapid ohia death, right? So, and it's called rapid ohia death because it kills the tree within weeks. So, at most of the trailheads and the entrances to all these parks, they have alcohol spray and, you know, boot cleaners, right? So you have to go there, you have to really, really wipe your boots off, so they don't want any kind of spores or anything like that coming into the park, right? So we had alcohol spray in the van and made sure that everybody was really adhering to that cleaning routine, because I mean, this is, if the honey creeper, if the birds don't eat the ohia, you know, if they don't eat the nectar of the ohia trees, they nest in the ohia trees. So like all of them, right? So it's super important for all of these native birds. So, and they don't really, I mean, it's a fungal infection that's taking the toll on these trees, but I don't think they really have a solution yet to try to fix it. So or try to like reverse it. Okay, and so we had the Oahu Amakihi, and I purposely do some bad photos because this is what you get. Of some of these things, you know, and I'm a bad photographer. So, you know, so this is the Kauai Amakihi. It's the biggest one of the Amakihi, of the 3 Amakihi species. There is one on Hawaii too that we've seen a little bit, but it's, you know, it's slightly bigger than the other 2, slightly bigger bill. But you can see it's feeding on the ohia flower right there. And it's doing okay. You know, like I said, they're generalists, right? So they eat a lot of insects as well. So they kind of manage, I don't know if that's the best word for it, but 5,000 individuals, that's not a bad total for some of these birds. So this is the Ani Ani Owl, right?
Yeah.
And one of the best names of any bird.
Ani Ani
Right?
Owl.
So this one took me at least a week there to say, but Ani Ani Owl, small, I think this is the smallest of the Hawaiian honey creepers that are still alive, right? And you can see it looks like the Amakihis, but it doesn't have a lot of black above the eye there, much smaller bill, and it's really lemon yellow. It's really, really, I did not do it justice with the photo, but it's really pretty good. This one took a long time to find. So, you know, their populations over the last 20 years are down like 90%. So I think this one is very susceptible to avian malaria. This one's going south fast. So, yeah, so the next 3 are the ones that we don't even try for, but they are. So I just wanted to kind of bring them up. So this is the small Kauai thrush, right? And it's basically just in these small little river, you know, I don't want to say canyons, but there's like little river slots that go through that kind of swamp. And so since it's a thrush, pretty closely related to like the solitaires and stuff like that, it has natural defenses against avian malaria, but black rats are predating the nests, right? So there's a lot of things besides malaria that are bad and really take a toll on these birds. So really black rats are the worst, or the biggest predator of the nests of these things. So this one's going south fast too, under 500 individuals left in the world. And here is the KK. So this is another one that's, it's, you know, it's an 8-mile hike to get to in this small little river, fast moving river stream. And it's about under 250 individuals left in the world. If you go onto like All About Birds or Birds of the World, you know, if you have a subscription to that, and you look at these birds, they're gonna say 1,500, 2,000 left. But if you go to Hawaii and talk to the people that live there, they're like, it's a quarter of that, you know, of all, right? So like you know, the populations are just crashing so fast that, you know, the literature doesn't have enough time to keep up. So, Akakeke, and then probably the worst is the Akakiki, right? So, there may or may not be. So basically, 2024 it's the year of its extinction, right? So there are individuals left, but they will not be there by the time that 2024 is over. So in the wild, right? There's a small population at the San Diego Zoo, about 40 individuals that they have kept. They did an egg collection in 2018 or 19, I think, and they have a backup population of this at the San Diego Zoo. But when I was there in November, Mandy Talbus, who's like one of the, she's a bird guide in Hawaii, lives in Hawaii, and we were talking to her just in passing, and she's like, I think I saw the last Aki, or they call a couple birds Aki, but they call this one Aki on Kauai. She's like, I think I saw the last one, you know, and since then there's been a couple reports of Akakiki, but they're herd only reports. You know, one of them was like, well, like this, identified by early. Right? So, when it comes to like stuff that is critically endangered, you know, it's like, you know, you have to have some you know, hard look proof to find it or to actually prove it. So this may or may not be extinct in the wild. You know, but avian malaria is taking that one out big time. So I kind of debated on where to put you know, what's going on with these birds in the slideshow. So I figured I'd do it in between Hawaii and Kauai because you know, avian malaria is what is taking out most of these birds. And mosquitoes, you know, are not native to Hawaii. You know, there's not a whole lot of things that are native to Hawaii, right? So the only things that are native to Hawaii are strong flyers and strong swimmers, right? That got there naturally. So strong flyers, birds, right? And strong swimmers, really not much, right? Maybe the seal, right? That's about it. So so mosquitoes got to the island with the whaling trade, right? So the whaling ships in the early 1800s would come into Hawaii. They'd have produce, they'd have fowl, they'd have all kinds of like you know, stuff to bring with them to eat, and the mosquitoes came in on that. Avian malaria didn't get there till another 100 years later. So the early 1900s is when the weakest strains of avian malaria came in, and that's when they kind of started to see that. Now, since it's not you know, mosquitoes are not native, these birds did not produce any defenses for that, right? So they have absolutely zero defense for avian malaria. So it takes about 3 days for a bird to die of avian malaria, right? So it's it's like the rapid ohia death with the ohia trees, right? It's super fast. So they don't have any time to do anything really. So once infected, 3 days, a week, and then they're dead. Right? So with no defenses, you know, you cannot create defenses fast enough to combat them, right? So these are the Asian tiger mosquitoes. I believe that's what they're called. There's 6 species of mosquitoes on the Hawaiian Islands. This is the bad, or they're all bad, but this is the one that actually affects most of the birds. So the really bad strains of malaria came over with in World War II with the Pacific Island campaign, when you got all these people and all these sailors coming in, and they brought all this, you know, produce, food, and all that stuff like that. That's where the bad strains of avian malaria came in. So since the 40s, it's been, you know, it's so that, you know, to be able to get defenses to malaria, I mean, you know, 80 years is nothing, you know, evolutionary wise to try to make the defenses for these things. So, oh yeah, and the mammals, right? So you got the mosquitoes, which are awful. Then you got the mammals, right? So these things are disgusting. No, the small Indian mongoose, right? These things are everywhere, and they're really creepy looking. You know, they get the red beady eyes. And they're kind of like ferrets with beer bellies, and they're just like long, and their bellies dragging on and stuff. But so rats were the first kind of invasive mammal to come in, right? The black rats, which are these guys,
Ooh.
tree climbing rats, right? So tree climbing rats would get up into the nests to eat eggs, and so they decided that, you know, wouldn't it be a great idea
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
to bring
what?
snakes
Yeah.
in, bring snakes, right? So pound snakes, you know, because they love rats, right? You know, and so the only problem is that the rats are nocturnal, the snakes are diurnal. and
Yeah.
They didn't
Never the
like,
way shall meet.
right, exactly. So then they're like, man, there's too many snakes here. Let's bring some mongoose in, right? So, which they did a pretty good job on the snakes. And then they're like, well, what else is there around? Oh, birds, right? So then they started eating the birds. So, so now, yeah, the mongoose are, you know, climbing up the trees, getting to the bird's nests and stuff like that. Feral cats are everywhere, especially on the big island. You know, it is, people feed them, right? So you go to a park and there's just bags of cat food out in the park, you know, and you've got all these feral cats that are just, and mongoose eating cat food, right? Yeah, it's pretty wild. And then, so you're the black rats. So, oh, more mammals. Okay, here we go. Big ones, right? So then you've got feral hogs, which are tearing up the landscape, right? And goats and sheep doing the same thing. So feral goats and sheep are a huge problem on Big Island. So I mean, you drive from Kona on the west side to Hilo on the east side over the main road that goes through the island, and there is just roadkill, sheep and goats everywhere. It's, you know, and then you saw there. I mean, we probably saw 200 on the way up,
Yeah.
right? So you just everywhere
Wow.
out there. So
Yeah. And
you know, tearing up the landscape, killing native plants, and I promise I wasn't gonna be able to. This is the Tuesday. So, but then there's this beautiful landscapes, right? So we got to see snow.
yes.
So this is Mauna Loa. So this is you know, 13,000 foot mountain on a volcanic island. It's crazy. It doesn't even look like it's 13,000 feet though.
No.
You land at sea level, and you're like, oh, it's a mountain. It's right there, you know, and you know, it's 13,000 feet above you. It's crazy. Like there's no trees. I mean, there are very little trees about from halfway up, you know, to the top. So it really looks quite a bit lower than it is. But also one of the best places on Big Island. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. This is my co-leader for the fall, Brian. So I was taking a picture of him, taking a picture of me. So, but the landscape on the Big Island is crazy. You know, as soon as you land, it's this. This is all that there is. It's just volcanic, you know, rock everywhere. It's really amazing. Until you get a little bit higher up, and then there's some soil, but not much. So probably one of the best spots to go in all of the Hawaiian Islands, where you can see the most native birds, most endemic birds, is the Hakalau National Wildlife Refuge. This is absolutely a stunning place to go. You can get like 11 or 12 endemic species. It's one native forest, right? So guess what? There's an Elepaio here too. The Hawaii Elepaio, so pretty stable. So there's two different subspecies of Elepaio on Big Island. So we saw the wet side, which is this one right here. You know, the dry side one's a little bit lighter. So very stable. I mean, this is the most birds we've seen of any of these, right? So a couple hundred
Oh,
thousand.
awesome.
So they have, since they're those flycatchers, the world taxa, right? They've been a little bit resistant to those strains that they malaria that come through, and they can exist at lower elevations and higher elevations. guess what? They have Namakihi too. So, just a really cute little guy, very stable. Same thing, you know, being generalists, they have actually, started, some defense against avian malaria, which is kind of nice to see. All right, this is one of my favorites, the kebab, right? It's just blood orange, like color, right? So this is about the view that you get of these things too, right? So it's sitting in a ohia tree, drinking nectar and flitting from tree to tree, but just absolutely beautiful bird. Fairly stable population, but nectar feeder, almost exclusively eats a few insects here and there. This is one of my favorites. So this is the Akipola owl, right? So this is what, if there was a woodpecker on the Hawaiian Islands, this is what it would be, right? So if you look at the bill of this thing, the mandible there, it's a chisel, right? So basically what it does is this big pokes holes in the koa trees, which I think I have a picture of koa, yes, the koa tree. So the koa tree, when it grows, it has all these dead branches on it like this, right? So the Akipola owl will go to those dead branches and chisel out holes to look for insects in the on the dead branches, and then it'll pick them out with that top bill, right? So it sticks it in, sticks the top the maxilla and it pulls out the insects. Really cool. So I think okay, so the koa tree, well, we'll talk about that. But yeah, here it is, kind of chiseling in on a little koa branch, and then it just picks out the grubs. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So the koa tree is pretty coveted, right? So it's super awesome wood, like almost like mahogany, different grades, right? So it's just really beautiful wood. First surfboards were made out of it. It's really bad for surfboards, but you know, the native Hawaiians would use it for surfboards, but mostly guitars, like furniture sets and stuff like that. So, but Akipola owl, this is the one that we searched for. You know, it is rapidly declining, with only about 15% left in the world. So only on Hawaii. The Eevee, I think, you know, when you think of Hawaiian honey creepers, this one comes up a lot, right? So it's just because it's so funny looking, right? So that big honking kind of curved bill, and then just a weird, you know, just kind of bulbous head there. but this is a cool bird. It's on most of the islands, so but it's really not doing well on Oahu and Molokai, but and Maui. So it's on Kauai and Hawaii, pretty good numbers, but Hawaii isn't strong. Super aggressive. It will chase off any other creature. Yeah. And makes the weirdest noises. Yeah.
Really? Just like that?
It's a great bird. Here we go, the IO. So, or EO, the Hawaiian hawk, right? So until now, you know, all the other islands, you know, don't have aerial predators, right? So Hawaii has the Hawaiian hawk, or native aerial predators. The buteo, kind of about the size of a fish or hawk. Does exactly what you think it does. Soars around and grabs black rats and EVs and whatever else. So, so one of the biggest dilemmas in the endangered species of Hawaii was the alala, right? So this is the Hawaiian crow, so completely out of the wild. There was a really good push to reintroduce these birds back to Hawaii in 2016, 2019. Guess what happened to these birds? So the EO started eating, right? So they would come into feeders, and the EO would know that and start eating the Hawaiian crows, right? So you've got one critically endangered bird eating another critically endangered bird, right? So what do, right? So the captive breeding program on Maui and in San Diego for these alalas they're thinking about reintroducing them out. But that takes a long time. And it just, it's, who knows if it'll work, but I mean, they're crows, right? So they're pretty resilient in general, like, but I always thought that was kind of weird, just critically endangered birds eating critically endangered birds. So one of the more common honey creepers and is the apapane. It's a beautiful little sing song that it has, and it's a brilliantly red bird. Almost looks like a scarlet tanager-ish, right? You know, except for it has a big black curved bill. But pretty stable population on all the islands. And a omao, so the Hawaiian thrush. So we saw the small Kauai thrush earlier. This is the other one, the bigger thrush, and pretty stable. Again, thrush, old world taxa has resistance to avian malaria, so not doing terrible. And then the nene, I know I'm running short on time. I always run short on time because I always think of these presentations. I'm like, I can have enough time. And then I always have to wait. I don't have enough time. But the nene, it's the most endangered goose in the world, right? So about 3,500. You wouldn't know it by going to Hawaii because they were like everywhere, right? They're just like, go to Kauai and they're like on the side of the road. They're like bathing in a nasty, rain puddle and stuff, but they're cool. They are stable and their population is growing. So
Gary had said they were down to 50
yeah.
in the 50s,
Yeah.
50s and 60s.
So their reintroduction efforts
Nice.
or their conservation efforts. Here's one that's in really bad shape that we only caught a fleeting glimpse of when we were there. The palila, right? If you go to Birds of the World, it's going to say there's about 1,000 to 1,200 of these birds. You go to Hawaii, they're like maybe 300, maybe. So they are a dry forest bird. So most of the birds that we've been seeing are the wet forest honey creepers. This is it's like a grosbeak type bird. They eat seed pods in the Maname I mispronounced most of the Mamane forests in the dry side of Mauna Kea. Bird only exists on one volcano, right? Mauna Kea. So its habitat is pretty slim. And this is a mamai tree. It's a legume, so they eat the seed pods, and that's pretty much all they eat. It's just the seed pods of this. So, what are they doing? Captive breeding programs. So this is a akakiki that they've misnetted, and they're banding obviously, but they did that big egg collection back in the late, or 2018, 2019. So they're captive breeding a lot of these native honey creepers, genetically altering mosquitoes. So this is the thing that they're really going after, is to introduce bacteria into these mosquitoes. And wild tailors. So invasive language, okay, here we go. What's being done? Genetically altered. So the Wolbachia bacteria, right? And some of y'all might be a little bit more versed. I'm not a bacteriologist by any means, but what they do is they introduce this bacteria, which is native to Hawaii. They're native Wolbachia bacteria in different insects in Hawaii. And so they're taking fruit fly bacteria out of fruit flies, putting them into male mosquitoes. And what that does is, if there's two different bacteria, Wolbachia bacteria in the male and the female, so they breed, and when the eggs are sterile, basically, when the female lays the eggs, they're sterile. So it's a hugely expensive undertaking, and but they've done this in a lot of different places for like humans, like dengue fever and stuff like that. So they've taken these bacteria and put them into mosquitoes in urban populations in like Africa and South America and stuff like that, and been successful. So they're doing that to these mosquitoes in the Hawaiian Islands, and it's to be determined, right? So we don't know if it's actually working yet. And I guess one of the things I should really talk about before I let you guys go is the reason these mosquitoes are attacking these birds or biting these birds. And mosquitoes don't like cold weather, right? So they're in hot places. So as the climate warms, these mosquitoes, they call it mosquito line on the islands, right? So it's an elevation on each island that the mosquitoes come up to, right? And the highest point in Kauai is 4,000 feet. guess what the mosquito line is in Kauai? 4,000 feet. So as the climate warms, the mosquitoes come higher and they push
Oh.
these birds higher up onto the mountains into the smaller territory, right? So that's, we all know what happens when you get that fragmented of a habitat, or that when you get like such less habitat than, or native, habitat, then, there's less breeding success. There's, just fewer birds all in general. So, but they have really, really high hopes for this one, the Wolbachia bacteria. And is it going to save some of these birds, like the Akikiki? But maybe the Anianiao, like maybe birds with over 10,000 individuals left, but birds under that, probably not, it's probably too late. So, yeah, so there's a lot of cool resources. I don't know if y'all listen to the ABA podcast that Nate Swick does. He's from Greensboro. Yeah, he had a really interesting podcast a couple of years ago with the director of the Kauai Forest Bird Recovery Project, and she was talking a lot about some of the stuff I touched on, and it's pretty interesting. So I can go back and listen to it if you're interested. It's pretty cool. But so there's a couple of different forest bird recovery projects. One in Maui, which my friend Nate Watkins from Tryon works for, and then the Kauai Forest Bird Recovery Project. So they're really working hard on raising money and trying these different things to save some of these birds. So, and the Hawaii Division of Forestry and Wildlife is doing the same thing. So they're all like working together. But that mosquito, just this project alone is probably going to be $5–10 million a year, right? So it's a lot of money. So, if you're gonna go to Hawaii and want to see these birds, go now. Yeah. Because they're not doing great, but it's a beautiful place to go. Right, so they have their own subspecies of short-eared owl, right? So the puleo, and that's a pretty cool bird. It flies around during the day, right? So it's pretty easy to see. What's that?
Owl.
Did I say owl?
No.
No, okay. Short-eared owl. Yes. Glad I have autocorrect here. But yeah, thanks for listening to me blather on, guys. Appreciate y'all for sure. Be happy to try to answer any questions that you guys have. And it's not all doom and gloom. It's great. I mean, food is really good. The scenery is awesome. It's fun when you get into a really intact native forest like Hakalau, and you see all these like just trees that are supposed to be there. There's no invasive, plants anywhere. They have blackberries with no thorns, right? So they've got all these plants with no defenses because there wasn't anything to defend against, right? So it's just really cool habitat. So you get in there and you can just close your eyes and you just listen to all the native birds sing. It's pretty amazing. That's all I have. Yeah, I can for sure. Yeah.
When we're talking about the black rats in the pond, is there
Yes.
stuff that is in place to kind of help that kind of things? Like, are people picking up the food in the parks so that it's stop? I mean, is
People, yeah, no, that's a good question. Yes, people are picking up the food, like the cat food in the parks, but fist fights, right? I mean, you get people that are down there trying to feed these cats because they like cats, right? And it's really like ugly. So, it's like trying to convince someone that outdoor cats are bad here. So it's like, sorry. But, and so like people love cats and they feed them. I mean, it's just like, there's like 20–30 pound bags that just open up and, throw out the parking lot.
They say it's just the law. It's for stuff that they put in place to.
Yeah, they can, I bet. Yeah, for sure. But, people are awesome at following the law.
And then the second part, the birds that they planted in San Diego, is there a thing to reintroduce them, or they're just gonna be in captivity?
Well, I think that, yes, they want to reintroduce them eventually, the Akikiki in particular. But I think they have to figure out this whole avian malaria thing first before they, so they want a stable population. Before, and they want to get a handle on the malaria first before they introduce some of these birds into the wild, right? Because if not, it's just, yeah. Sir. They are, I mean, so Kauai, so the Akikiki, the kind of small brown one with the wet, they are, I mean, traditionally, 500 feet in elevation all the way up to 4,000 where Kauai tops out. They got pushed all the way up, right? And they just, I mean, so they're not lowland special. They're most of these birds traditionally without any kind of stressor would be most of the way up and down mountains. So the ohia trees and the koa trees, those native forests went all the way down to like 500 feet, 1,000 feet elevation and all the way up, right? So they would be in all of those areas.
I just wanted to thank you. I think you made a better plug for advocacy day than I could have.
Yeah.
I know, Fred.
You got the right person in the job. Yeah. Well, thanks, y'all. I appreciate you guys having me here for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.